I can still smell her perfume in the hallway. It's been 3 weeks since we buried my mom, yet her presence refuses to leave this house. Every single morning, I wake up expecting to hear her humming in the kitchen. That soft, familiar tune she'd sing while making coffee. But there's only silence now. A deep, heavy silence that wraps around me like a cold, damp fog rolling in from the coast. I came back to our little wooden house on the edge of town, surrounded by those towering pine trees, to sort through her things. Mom always said that memories have weight, and she was so right. Every photo I pick up, every folded note I find tucked away in a drawer, every half-empty teacup she left on a shelf. It all feels like a stone pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. People tell you to keep busy when grief knocks you off your feet. Move clean, just keep breathing, survive, they say. But I couldn't. This house, it feels alive, almost like it's watching me, holding its breath just like I am. That morning I found it, tucked away under her favorite armchair, her old leather-bound journal. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside, she had written something just a few days before she passed. It said, "If one day I can't speak to you, my dear Emily, I'll find another way." I froze. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the morning air. My breath caught in my throat. She couldn't have known she was going to die. The doctors said it was sudden, a heart attack, completely unexpected. But those words, they felt less like a simple note and more like a solemn promise. As I stared at her familiar, elegant handwriting, the room grew colder. The old grandfather clock in the corner, the one that had been ticking my entire life, stopped. Dead silence. And then, for the first time, I heard it. A sound so faint it was almost not there, like a whisper right beside my ear. "I'm not gone." I whipped my head around so fast my neck cracked. There was no one there. Just me. The dust motes dancing in the soft morning light, and the sound of the wind brushing against the window pane. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, a trick of a grieving mind. But deep down, in that quiet place where you know the truth, I knew. This wasn't the end. Something was just beginning. The days that followed were strange. Little things started happening. Her favorite rocking chair would be gently swaying when I walked into the living room, even though all the windows were closed. The scent of her rose perfume would suddenly fill the air, strong and fresh, only to vanish moments later. I kept telling myself there had to be logical explanations. A draft, a memory playing tricks on my senses. I was clinging to rationality like a life raft in a storm. But then came the books. Mom was a librarian, a true lover of words. Her study was her sanctuary, walls lined floor to ceiling with books of every kind. One afternoon, I was trying to organize her massive collection of classic literature, a task that felt both monumental and heartbreaking. As I pulled a dusty copy of Wuthering Heights from the shelf, another book fell from the top, landing open at my feet. It was a collection of poetry. My eyes fell on a single underlined verse. "Death is nothing at all." I have only slipped away into the next room. My heart hammered against my ribs. Coincidence? Maybe. But it happened again the next day. I was cleaning the kitchen, and a cookbook fell open to her handwritten recipe for apple pie, the one she only ever made for my birthday. At the top of the page, she had scribbled a note years ago. "A little bit of love makes everything sweeter." It felt like she was talking directly to me. These weren't just random occurrences. It felt like a trail of breadcrumbs, a language only we could understand. She was using her most cherished possessions, her books, to communicate. She was keeping her promise. She was finding another way. I started spending all my time in her study, waiting. I would sit for hours just watching the shelves, my heart a mix of fear and desperate hope. And then it would happen. A book would slide out, just an inch or two, as if nudged by an unseen hand. First, a travel guide to Italy, the trip we always dreamed of taking together. Then her old gardening encyclopedia, open to the page on forget-me-nots. Each one was a message, a memory, a piece of her soul reaching out across the veil. The whispers became clearer too. No longer just a faint rustle of sound, but distinct words carried on the air. "My Emily. So proud. Don't be sad." They were always soft, always comforting. The cold feeling that had first accompanied her presence was gone, replaced by a warmth that felt like a gentle hug. The house was no longer a place of silent, suffocating grief. It was filled with her. It was our sanctuary again. I wasn't alone anymore. I started talking back. At first, I felt foolish, whispering to an empty room. But then a book would move in response, or the scent of her coffee would drift from the kitchen, and I knew she was listening. We had conversations. I'd tell her about my day, how much I missed her, and she would answer with a memory tucked inside a book or a whisper that sounded like the rustling of pages. The fear was completely gone, replaced by a profound sense of peace. My mom wasn't a ghost haunting this house. She was a presence, a guardian, a love that even death couldn't erase. One evening, as a storm raged outside, the power flickered and died. The house was plunged into darkness, and for a moment, panic seized me. The silence was back, absolute and deafening. I called out her name, my voice trembling. "Mom, are you here?" Nothing. The fear crept back in, cold and sharp. Had I imagined it all? Was I finally losing my mind to grief? I sat there in the dark, tears streaming down my face, feeling more alone than ever before. Then, a faint light began to glow from the study. I slowly got up and walked towards it, my heart pounding. The light was coming from her old desk lamp, the one with the brass base. It shouldn't have been on. As I got closer, I saw a single book lying open neath its soft glow. It was her journal, the one I had found that first day. It was open to a new page, a page that had been blank before. In her familiar, elegant handwriting, fresh as if written only moments ago, were 3 words. "I am always here." In that moment, everything clicked into place. The whispers, the books, the scents. It was all her. A force of love so strong it defied the very laws of nature. She wasn't gone. She had just found a different way to be with me. I no longer needed to sort through her things or pack up her life. Her life was still here, intertwined with mine. This house wasn't a tomb of memories. It was our home, a place where a mother's love had built a bridge between 2 worlds. The grief was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it was no longer a crushing weight. It was now part of a larger story, a story of love, of loss, and of a bond that death itself could not break. And I knew with absolute certainty that I would never be truly alone again. The days that followed ... they were strange. At first, it was just whispers faint, almost tender, like a breath on the back of my neck when I was alone. Then it was the smell of lavender, my mom's favorite, wafting through the house at the most random times. And sometimes, a soft knock at my bedroom door, when I knew for a fact no one was there. I was packing up her things, surrounded by a lifetime of memories, and it felt like she was right there with me, just out of sight. I tried telling my best friend Sarah about it. She listened, of course, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She thought the grief was making me see things, that I was losing it. And honestly, maybe I was. But how do you explain something that feels so real, so tangible? How do you explain the cold spot on her side of the bed or the way her favorite teacup would be sitting on the counter in the morning, even though I'd put it away the night before? It wasn't scary, not at first. It was comforting. Like she was trying to let me know she was still around. On the 3rd night, something shifted. I woke up with a jolt, not sure what had disturbed me. The house was silent, but a sliver of light was coming from under my door. I crept out to find the hallway light on. And there on the floor was the photo of Mom that always sat on the hall table. The glass in the frame had cracked right down the middle. My heart dropped. But as I picked it up, something chilled me to the bone. Her smile in the picture. It looked different, softer, more serene, almost alive. It was the same photo I'd looked at 1,000 times. But tonight, it felt like she was looking right back at me with a message in her eyes. I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't an accident. It felt like a sign, a deliberate act to get my attention. Standing there in the dim hallway, clutching the broken frame, I knew this was more than just my imagination. Something was happening in this house, and I was starting to think it had been happening for a very long time. A strange pull led me down the hall, to a place I hadn't been since she passed her study. This was her sanctuary, The one room she never let anyone enter. The door was always locked. Tonight, it was slightly ajar. Pushing it open, I was hit by a wave of cold air. It was thick, heavy with the scent of old books, dust, and something else. That faint smell of lavender again, stronger than ever. Her desk sat in the center of the room, exactly as she'd left it. Papers were neatly stacked, pens in their holder. It was a time capsule. I ran my hand over the polished wood, half expecting her to walk in and tell me to get out. The main drawer was locked, just as I'd expected. My rational mind told me to leave, to respect her privacy even now. But a powerful intuition, a feeling that was not my own, told me to look closer. I knelt down, feeling along the underside of the desk. My fingers brushed against something smooth. Tape. Taped to the bottom of the drawer was an old, yellowed envelope. It was sealed, unmarked. My name was written on the front in her familiar, elegant handwriting. But as I held it under the dim light of her desk lamp, my breath caught in my throat. It was dated 3 days after her death. My hands started to tremble. My heart pounded against my ribs like a drum. How? How could that possibly be? It made no sense. A letter from my mother, written after she was gone. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to step into a world I never knew existed. Every instinct screamed at me to open it, but a part of me was terrified of what I might find inside. What secret was she trying to tell me from beyond the grave? The seal on the envelope was brittle with age. My fingers hesitated for a moment before I carefully tore it open. Inside wasn't a long letter, but a single folded piece of paper and a small ornate brass key. I unfolded the paper first. It contained only a short cryptic message, written in the same hand. The answers are in the roots. He doesn't know everything. Trust the whispers. The roots? What did that mean? And who was he? My dad. It didn't make sense. I looked at the key. It was old, clearly not for any modern lock in the house. I tried it on her desk drawer, but it didn't fit. I searched the study, trying the key on every box, every cabinet, every lock I could find. Nothing. Frustration began to bubble up inside me. It felt like she had given me a puzzle with a missing piece. Trust the whispers, the note said. I closed my eyes, trying to focus, trying to hear something, anything. And that's when it happened. A faint melodic humming seemed to fill the room, coming from the direction of the old grandfather clock in the corner, a family heirloom that hadn't worked in years. I walked over to it, the humming growing slightly louder as I approached. On the side of the clock, almost hidden in the carved woodwork, was a tiny keyhole I had never noticed before. With a shaky hand, I inserted the brass key. It fit perfectly. I turned it, and with a soft click, a hidden compartment popped open at the base of the clock. Inside the compartment was a small, leather-bound journal. It was worn, the cover softened by years of use. Her journal. I felt a pang of guilt, knowing this was the one thing she had always kept completely private. But the note, the key, the whispers, they had led me here. She wanted me to find this. I opened it to the first page. The entry was dated 25 years ago, shortly after I was born. She wrote about her joy, her fears, but then she wrote about something else. She wrote about the gifts in our family, a sensitivity passed down through the women in her line, the ability to feel things, to see things, to hear the echoes of the past. She described her own experiences as a young girl, hearing whispers and seeing shadows, just like I was now. She called them the echoes of the house, spirits tied to the property, our ancestors. She wasn't haunted. She was communicating. As I read on, my entire world tilted on its axis. My mother, the logical, pragmatic woman I knew, had been living a secret life, one steeped in the supernatural. She wrote about learning to control it, to understand the whispers, and to protect her family from any that were not benign. She wrote about me. She knew I had the same gift, and she was terrified for me. The final entries were the most chilling. They were from the last weeks of her life. She wrote about a presence that had grown stronger, something old and not from our family line. He. She felt it was drawn to her weakening state, and she feared it would be drawn to my latent abilities after she was gone. "He doesn't know everything," the note said. She was leaving me a guide, a warning. This wasn't just about grief. It was about a legacy I never knew I had, and a danger that was now waiting for me. The house wasn't just filled with memories. It was filled with spirits, and I was the new gatekeeper. The question was I ready? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I know this is a lot to take in, and honestly, I'm still processing it all myself. If you've ever experienced something you can't explain, let me know in the comments below. It helps to know I'm not alone in this. And if you want to see what happens next, what I find in the rest of this journal, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support means the world to me. We'll figure this out together. For hours, I just stared at it. This envelope sitting on my desk felt like a ghost in the room. It was impossible, it couldn't exist, and yet there it was. My hands trembled so badly I could barely hold them still. The candlelight in the study flickered, making shadows dance on the walls, and the scent of lavender, her favorite, hung heavy in the air. Everything in this room, the photos, the books, it all screamed of her, of the life we shared. And now ... this. Finally, with a surge of something, I don't know if it was courage or desperation, I broke the seal. The paper was crisp, not old and brittle like you'd expect, and the ink ... it wasn't faded. It looked fresh, as if it had been written just yesterday. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the heavy silence. My eyes, already swollen from crying, scanned the first line. "My dear Emily, if you're reading this, I've already crossed the bridge." A gasp escaped my lips, sharp and painful. The words on the page swam, blurring through a fresh wave of tears. It was her handwriting, unmistakable. But how? How was this possible? I read on, my whole body shaking. "You won't understand how this letter found you," she wrote. "But know that love doesn't end where life does. It bends, it shifts, it finds its way through what you call time." As I read, I could almost hear her voice in my mind, that calm, loving tone that always made me feel safe. It was like she was right here whispering the words to me. Every sentence felt alive, imbued with her spirit, her essence. She wrote about the light, about a profound peace she'd found. She described watching over me, seeing me cry, and how she wished with all her being that she could hold me just one more time. My fingers traced her signature, feeling a strange warmth emanate from the paper. It was a comfort and an agony all at once. Then, near the end, a sentence jumped out, a cryptic instruction that made no sense. "Something is still unfinished. You must find the music box." A music box? I looked around the study, my gaze sweeping over every shelf, every corner. I grew up in this house. I knew every nook and cranny. There was no music box. I had never seen one, never heard of one. Was this some kind of metaphor, a riddle I was meant to solve? My mind raced, trying to decipher her meaning, but it was a blank. Confusion tangled with my grief. What did she want me to find? And why? Exhausted, emotionally and physically drained, I eventually went to bed, clutching the letter to my chest. The house was quiet, wrapped in the stillness of the night. I lay there in the dark, the words of the letter echoing in my head, the mystery of the music box weighing on me. I must have drifted off, because I was jolted awake by a sound. It was faint at first, so soft I thought I might be dreaming. A delicate tinkling melody, a lullaby. It was a tune I didn't recognize, yet it felt hauntingly familiar. I sat up, my heart pounding again, but this time with a different kind of fear. A sense of awe. The music grew a little stronger. It was coming from somewhere downstairs. Slowly, I pushed back the covers, my feet finding the cold wooden floor. The air was chilled, and goosebumps prickled my arms. Every instinct screamed at me to stay in bed, to pull the covers over my head and pretend I'd heard nothing. But I couldn't. This was her. I knew it. This was her showing me the way. I crept out of my room and down the stairs, each step a carefully placed movement, as if I might scare away the sound. The melody led me not to the study, not to the living room, but to the old, dusty attic. a place I hadn't been in years. The door was slightly ajar. The music was clearest here, a gentle, ethereal tune spilling from the darkness within. With a trembling hand, I pushed the door open. Dust motes danced in the sliver of moonlight filtering through a small window. And there, sitting on an old wooden trunk, was a small, intricately carved box. I'd never seen it before in my life. As I stepped closer, the melody played on, a soft, welcoming sound in the silence. It was the music box. I reached out and lifted the lid. The music stopped. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, wasn't a spinning ballerina or a tiny figurine. It was a key. A small, ornate, brass key. And beneath it, another folded piece of paper. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't the end of her message. It was just the beginning. The next note was short. The key opens the one thing we built together, but never opened. Your heart knows the way. What did we build together? A memory flashed in my mind, a sunny afternoon years ago in the backyard. We'd buried a time capsule, a silly project we'd laughed about. A metal box filled with our dreams and secrets, buried under the old oak tree. We were supposed to open it on our 50th anniversary. The next morning, armed with a shovel and the strange, otherworldly key, I went to the oak tree. My hands were raw and my back ached, but I dug. I dug until the shovel hit something hard with a dull thud. It was a small, rusted metal box. The lock was old, but the brass key slid in perfectly. It turned with a satisfying click. Lifting the heavy lid, I found it filled with mementos. A faded photograph of us on our wedding day, a seashell from our first vacation, a dried flower from a bouquet she'd given me. And on top of it all, another letter. This one was thicker, a whole stack of pages bound with a ribbon. Her words flowed, telling me stories I'd forgotten, reminding me of a love that was and still is so incredibly powerful. She wrote about her final days, not with sadness, but with a sense of peace, knowing our love was a force that even death couldn't diminish. She told me she had arranged all of this before she left, a final, beautiful treasure hunt to guide me through my grief. The first letter delivered by a trusted friend on a specific date. The music box, a gift she'd hidden long ago. Its melody, a lullaby she wrote for me. It was all planned. A final, elaborate love letter spanning time and space. She urged me not to live in the past, but to carry our love into the future. Find joy again, my Emily, she wrote. Let our love be your strength, not your anchor. Live fully. And know that I am always with you in the whisper of the wind, in the warmth of the sun, in the melody of a forgotten song. Sitting there, under the shade of the old oak tree, with tears streaming down my face, I wasn't just crying from sadness anymore. I was crying from the overwhelming beauty of it all. The impossible had happened. She had reached across the veil to say one last goodbye, and in doing so, had given me the most incredible gift. The permission to live again with her love forever in my heart. This journey she sent me on, it didn't take away the pain of losing her, but it transformed it. It showed me that the end of a life is not the end of love. And sometimes, if you listen closely, you can still hear the music. Thank you so much for joining me and listening to this story. It's a reminder that love is the most powerful force in the universe. If you were touched by this journey, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories that explore the mysteries of the heart. Until next time, take care. The house was silent, a kind of heavy stillness that had become my constant companion since Mom passed. But tonight, something was different. A melody, faint and ethereal, drifted through the darkness. It was a tune I hadn't heard in years, a lullaby she used to hum. It pulled me from my bed, a thread of sound leading me down the long, shadowed hallway. I walked barefoot, the cool floorboards a stark contrast to the strange warmth spreading through my chest. Moonlight streamed through the windows, painting the familiar corridor in shades of silver and gray, making everything feel both real and dreamlike. The music grew stronger as I approached the living room. There, on the old oak table where Mom used to leave her books, sat a small wooden box. It wasn't just any box, it was hers. Carved with intricate roses and the initials E.P. Eleanor Prescott, my mother. I'd never seen it glow before, but tonight, It was bathed in a soft, pulsating light, the source of the hauntingly beautiful melody. My hand trembled as I reached for it. It felt warm to the touch, alive. With a deep breath that caught in my throat, I lifted the lid. The music swelled, filling the room, and then softened to a gentle hum. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a small folded piece of paper and a silver locket, tarnished with age. My fingers, clumsy with a mix of fear and hope, carefully unfolded the note. The handwriting was hers, the elegant loops and curls unmistakable. 2 words were written on the fragile parchment. "Forgive yourself." A sob escaped my lips, a sound I'd suppressed for so long. Forgive myself? How could I? The guilt had been a physical weight, crushing me day after day. The night she died, I was out with friends. I saw her name flash on my phone screen and, thinking it was just another check-in, I ignored the call. That was her last call. The what-ifs had been my tormentors, playing on a loop in my mind for years. What if I had answered? Could I have done something? Said something? The anger I felt wasn't at the world or at fate. It was at myself for not being there. My tear-filled eyes fell upon the locket. I picked it up, its cool metal a grounding presence in my shaking hand. With a click, it opened. Inside was a tiny photograph, a faded image of me as a little girl, no older than 5, with a missing front tooth and a wide grin. My mom was beside me, her arms wrapped around my shoulders, her own smile so full of love it radiated even from the tiny worn picture. It was a day at the park, I remembered. A perfect day. As I stared at our faces, my thumb brushed against the back of the photo. I felt a slight indentation. Carefully, I pried the picture out. There, engraved on the silver behind it, were 3 more words. "Always with you." The dam broke. Tears streamed down my face, not the hot, angry tears of guilt, but tears of release. It was impossible. This box hadn't been opened in a decade. This message. It was a bridge across an impossible distance. It was her reaching through time, through everything, to tell me it was okay, to set me free. I clutched the locket and the note to my chest, sinking to my knees on the floor. The music, which had been a constant, gentle presence, began to fade away like a sigh. As the last note dissolved into the quiet of the night, the chill in the room seemed to vanish with it. A profound warmth bloomed in its place, starting in my chest and spreading through every part of me. It was a feeling I hadn't known since before the funeral, a feeling I thought I had lost forever. Peace. I stayed there for a long time, on the floor of the moonlit living room, holding my mother's final gift. The heavy blanket of grief I had worn for so long finally began to lift. It wasn't gone, not completely, but it was no longer a crushing weight. It was just a part of me, a part of my love for her. Looking at the photo, at her smiling face, I finally understood. She wouldn't have wanted me to live in a prison of my own making. Her love wasn't a chain, it was a key. And tonight she had given it to me. As dawn approached, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, I walked back to my room. The house was still quiet, but the silence was different now. It was no longer heavy and empty. It was gentle, peaceful. I placed the music box on my nightstand, the locket and note safely back inside. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope for the days to come. The melody was gone, but the message remained, echoing in the quiet chambers of my heart. Forgive yourself. Always with you. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my soul, that I finally could. I was ready to live again, not just for myself, but for her too. Thank you so much for joining me on this deeply personal journey tonight. If this story resonated with you, or if you've ever dealt with loss and the long road to healing, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Sharing our stories is how we find connection and light in the darkness. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again soon. The following morning, I woke up feeling lighter. It was a strange sensation, one I hadn't felt in a very long time. Something had shifted inside me, almost like a door that had been stuck for ages had finally creaked open. The heavy weight that had settled in my chest, the one I carried since Mom passed, felt different. Not gone, but changed. I found myself drawn to the porch, just as the sun was beginning to stretch its golden fingers over the misty hills. The world was quiet, holding its breath. The air was cool and crisp against my skin. I stood there, wrapped in my sweater, listening to the first hesitant chirps of the birds. It was in that profound stillness that I finally found the words I needed to say. I whispered them into the morning air, so quietly I wasn't even sure I'd spoken them aloud. "Thank you, Mom." It was a simple phrase, but it held everything. The pain, the love, the longing, the gratitude. As the words left my lips, a gentle breeze, soft as a sigh, brushed against my cheek. And in that moment I heard it. A faint whisper, carried on the wind, a voice I knew as well as my own. "I told you I'd find a way." Tears streamed down my face, but this time, they weren't just tears of sorrow. A smile broke through. It was a watery, fragile smile, but it was real. The grief hadn't magically vanished. It was still a part of me, a deep ocean within. But now it had a new dimension. It had meaning. The letter, the cabin, this moment. It was all part of a conversation that hadn't ended. It had just changed form. Love, I realized with a sudden, breathtaking clarity, doesn't die. It can't be buried or forgotten. It transforms. It becomes the warmth of the sun on your face, the whisper of the wind through the trees, the strength you find when you think you have none left. It finds new ways to reach you, to remind you that you are not alone. And as I stood there watching the mist lift and the day begin, I understood that the letter wasn't just for me. It wasn't just my story. It was for anyone who has ever lost someone they love. It's for everyone who still listens for a familiar voice in the profound silence, hoping for a sign, a whisper, a reassurance. It's a reminder that even when someone is gone, the love you shared creates an echo that never truly fades. It's a promise that if you listen closely enough, you can still hear the music. That experience changed the way I see everything. It didn't erase the pain, but it taught me how to live with it, how to find the beauty within the sorrow. It taught me that our connections with those we love are so much stronger than we can possibly imagine, transcending time and space. They are woven into the very fabric of our lives, continuing to guide us, comfort us, and love us, long after we've said goodbye. This journey, this letter from my mom, has been a gift. It's a story I felt compelled to share, not for my own sake, but in the hope that it might reach someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is navigating their own path through grief, feeling lost in the silence. My hope is that it reminds you that you are not walking this path alone. The love you are missing is still with you, just in a different way. Look for it in the small moments, listen for it in the quiet, and trust that it will find a way to reach you. It always does. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It means the world to me to be able to share this. It's been 3 months since the letter arrived. 3 months since everything changed. The world didn't stop, but my corner of it certainly did for a while. Now life goes on, but it's different. It's slower, gentler. The frantic pace I once kept, trying to outrun the quiet moments, has faded away. I've learned to sit with the silence, to find comfort in it. This old wooden house, once a sanctuary of shared memories that sometimes felt too heavy to bear, is now filled with a different kind of light. Sunlight streams through the windows, catching dust motes dancing in the air, each one a tiny spark of the present moment. It feels warm, welcoming. The air smells of pine from the surrounding woods and the faint sweet scent of old books and brewing tea. It's the smell of home, redefined. On the table, the music box sits open. Its delicate melody, the one that used to be a painful echo of what was lost, is silent now. But it's not just a silent object. In the soft morning light, it seems to hold a gentle internal glow. It's no longer a source of sorrow, but a quiet testament to a love that continues, a promise kept. It's a reminder that the music hasn't stopped. It's just playing on a frequency only the heart can hear. Sometimes, when a gentle breeze whispers through the tall pine trees outside, I think I can still hear her humming. It used to send a shiver down my spine, a mix of longing and fear. Fear of a ghost, fear of a memory I couldn't let go of. But I don't fear it anymore. That sound is no longer a haunting. It's a greeting. It's the rustle of leaves, the creak of the porch swing, the familiar comfort of her presence woven into the fabric of this place. I've come to understand that some goodbyes aren't really endings. We're taught to see loss as a final chapter, a door slamming shut, but it's not. It's a transition. It's a shift from one form of love to another. The love you had, the physical presence, the daily conversations, that transforms. It becomes something quieter, more internal. It becomes the strength you find on a difficult day, the wisdom that guides a tough decision, the warmth you feel when you see a sunset that she would have loved. The bond doesn't break. It simply changes its shape. It becomes a part of you. This journey of healing hasn't been a straight line. There are still days when the grief feels as fresh as it did in the beginning. Days when a particular song or the smell of rain can bring tears to my eyes. But now I don't fight those moments. I let them wash over me, acknowledging the love that they represent. Because grief, I've learned, is just love with nowhere to go. So I give it a place to be. I let it exist alongside the joy, the peace, and the hope. I've started to find joy in the small things again. The taste of my first cup of coffee in the morning, the warmth of the sun on my skin as I tend to the small garden I've started. The yellow dress I'm wearing today. I chose it because it feels like sunshine. It feels like healing. It is a symbol of the promise I made to myself. To live a life that honors her memory not by dwelling in sadness, but by embracing the light she brought into my world and reflecting it back. I've been thinking a lot about the nature of connection. We think it's about proximity, about being able to see and touch someone, but true connection transcends the physical. Love travels. It travels through time, making the past feel present. It travels through silence, speaking volumes when words fail. And it travels through dreams, offering comfort and messages in the quiet of the night. The energy of that love doesn't just vanish. It dissipates into the world, into us. So, if you're listening to this right now and you've lost someone you can't imagine living without, someone whose absence feels like a physical ache in your chest, please know this: the love you shared is not gone. It's still with you. It's in the lessons they taught you, the laughter you shared, the way they made you see the world. That bond is unbreakable. Look for it in the kindness of a stranger, in the beauty of nature, in the strength you didn't know you had. Remember that it's okay to move forward. Moving forward isn't forgetting. It's carrying their memory with you into a new chapter. It's living a life that they would be proud of, a life full of the very love they gave you. The story isn't over, and maybe, just maybe, one day when you least expect it, you'll find your own letter. It might not be on paper, tucked inside a music box. It might be a sudden feeling of peace, a sign from the universe, or a dream that feels incredibly real. It will be your sign that love in its purest form never truly says goodbye. Thank you for sharing this quiet moment with me today. It means a lot to be able to share this part of my journey. If this resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd like and subscribe. It helps this community grow, and it lets me know that we're all in this together. Take care and be gentle with yourselves.